everybody. Welcome to the Shot Clock Podcast with me, your host, Jago. Look, the last couple of episodes are starting to get stretched out a bit, running a bit too long. This is another one of those episodes that ran a little bit too long because myself and the participant got into it about different things. So we're going to split it over 2 episodes. So today's guest is former UCD, UUJ Elks and Shamrock Rovers hoops player Eno Boyle. So enjoy part 1 of the Eno Boyle episode. Oh. Hey everybody, welcome to the Shot Clock Podcast with me, Jago. Today's guest is a former teammate of mine. We spent 2 seasons together in hoops. Former UCD, former Notre Dame, quick stint up with UUJ Elks. A guy who I coached when he was probably 14 or 15, maybe a little bit younger. When he was living down in Newbridge, used to commute up to Kilnamanagh for training sessions. Eno Boyle, what's the story? How's things, buddy?
Hey, Jago, how are you? Thanks for having me on, buddy. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. So, look, I've started every episode kind of the same way, and now that we're transitioning to a new period of COVID, how are you with the lockdowns ending over in Australia and, you know, getting back to real life?
Yeah, man, like COVID here was a bit of a different experience, I think, to how it was in Ireland and obviously a lot of Europe. I know when you were chatting to Luke O'Hay, he gave you a bit of the rundown of what he went through, and he's over in Melbourne, which is a bit further away from where we are here in South Australia. And like Melbourne had a bit of a tough time for a while. They had the whole lockdown thing going on, but where we were in South Australia, like we never had really any proper lockdowns like they did in Melbourne or in Dublin, and life has been pretty much like normal, I have to say. You know, I almost feel bad saying that because I know what you guys have been going through, but it's been fine, man. Like it just hasn't been like a big issue. Like you can't travel internationally, you can't leave Australia basically. But in terms of just being here and, you know, no lockdowns, you know, kind of not really any restrictions in place. A lot of work from home type stuff, which is grand. Like that suits me fine. But yeah, well, apart from that, man, we've been very lucky, very fortunate. So not taking it for granted. And obviously they're trying to do the whole vaccine rollout here now, and they're making the balls of that as they are kind of back in Ireland as well.
Same here.
Yeah. So I don't know, like I'm hoping to get home next year. My mate Paul Cummins is getting married next March. So literally, like the Australian government said the other day that they think they're going to keep international borders closed until the middle of next year. Okay. So that's how much of a balls they've made of the vaccine rollout, that they don't think they'll get everyone vaccinated before then.
Wow. So
I'll be pretty pissed off. I can't make it home by then, but hopefully it'll all be kind of done and dusted by then. I think they're being pretty conservative by saying that. So
look, better safe than sorry. And that's, you know, the Irish government kind of went the opposite way and went, we'll have everybody done in 20 minutes. And now it's like, well, we won't. You know, it's like, no, we're not. No, we're nowhere close. Sorry.
Yeah.
We didn't order. We didn't order enough.
Yeah. Oh man, you didn't get your vaccination yet.
Not yet. Yeah, not yet. No, I think I'm 2 cohorts away or 3. My parents both got their first one, so
yeah,
like, that's good. Like it's one of them. You know, I really want my mom because like she's 10 grandkids, so you know it'd be nice for her to like be able to hug her grandkids again. You know what I mean, and not be worried and all of that stuff. So you know, I really want. I'm looking. She's 2 weeks away from getting her second one, and then 7 days after that, she's clear. But looking at your Instagram stories every day and seeing you down by the beach and the kids out surfing and skating, I'm like, damn. Like we couldn't go outside 5K for a while. You know what I mean?
Oh man, it was terrible. Like I was talking to obviously all my mates back home and my family, and just felt so bad for everyone, you know. But look, hopefully
it didn't stop you posting the pictures though.
I know. I've cut down a bit on that, I guess. I felt too guilty.
So look, as I said, you've played for quite a few teams over here, but who, what, or why inspired you to pick up a basketball in the first place?
Yeah, I reckon I was about probably 10 years old in school and at Garvin down just outside Newbridge, and there was like a teacher there. Her name was Miss O'Connor. And she was just one of these teachers who was kind of like into basketball or whatever, you know, and she she was getting some kids together like after school, and you'd do some training and stuff. And I was trying to think, like, was there a particular moment when it clicked for me or something that, oh, like this is, I love this sport, it is what I want to do. But I don't think there was. Like, it was just this kind of gradual build up to, eventually complete obsession, as we all have. So it started off there, and then like there was under 13 community games, and that was kind of like a first introduction to a bit of competition and stuff, which I thought was awesome. Yeah, and then from there, like a bit of club basketball in Newbridge and up to Kilnamanagh, as you were saying, where there wasn't like a whole lot of competition around down in Newbridge. So I did that whole scene, and yeah, just progressed from there. Then obviously to Notre Dame underage teams and underage Irish teams, that whole scene. And yeah, into the Super League, I reckon when I think 16 or 17 was my first kind of season of Super League, and yeah, kind of onwards and upwards from there. So yeah, it was good. Like I was completely obsessed with basketball from I reckon the age of like 11 or 12 onwards. Just all I did all day, every day. Didn't want to do any other sport. Didn't want to go to school. Just wanted to shoot a basketball out in my back garden. And then like whenever I could get in the gym, how hard it is when like back then, and hopefully it's a bit easier for kids these days, but back then like getting in the gym was a big thing. Still can't do it.
Still exactly the same. Like even
Man, that was my biggest frustration in like growing up in Ireland, like as a basketball player. It was just like no one would let you go into a gym to get shots up or to play, like to have a scrimmage with your friends. There was always some bullshit excuse like, oh, like insurance, or oh, if you can't do it for this or that reason. It's like just let us in there, like we're like get us off the streets, like drinking or smoking or whatever. Like get us in the gym, doing something that's healthy and positive. And man, like my first like I reckon 5 or 6 years playing basketball was just all on outdoor courts, and in Ireland, like in the winter, that's basically doesn't happen because it's pissing raining. And
it's not even the winter. Like we're back training. We're allowed to train outdoors now with the kids, So I have the Fairhouse ladies under 15 girls who'll transition to 16s next season, and I have the senior team as well. And we're training on an outdoor court. So 2 Tuesdays ago, 7 o'clock Tuesday night, all the girls are there. Second day back, super enthusiastic, all ready to go. 7:05, pisses rain, calling their parents, going, "Yeah, come back and get them."
Yeah.
Because you're looking at, if somebody breaks an ankle, it's it's all just insurance.
Yeah.
So it's just
it's heartbreaking. Oh man, do you remember that gym? You've been there a few times, like down in Newbridge at the PBS in Newbridge. They used to call it the ice rink.
The ice rink.
Had, like, big barrier going around the side. The floor was as slippery as ice, and then they had the barrier going around the side, so you just like smash into it as you were sliding. But they used to have like an old like wooden double doors on that, and me and like all my mates from Newbridge used to go down. We literally could just like rip the door open and sneak in. We'd play. And then we'd leave and like we'd shut the doors closed, and the lock would go into it again. So we literally had to like break into the gym just to like try to get better at playing our sport. Like,
it's terrible. Like I watched there was a webinar on during the first lockdown, and who was on? I think Orla O'Reilly was on, or no, one of Mark Scannell's kids was on talking about. She's playing in Australia. And she was saying, over here we have this program, and she gave like the structure of, she's up in Melbourne, so she gave the structure of how the sport is structured in Australia, which has made their national teams so good. But it's like, oh yeah, we have this gym, and there's 6 courts in this gym, and there's and then we play every day, and there's this level and this, and you're sitting there watching this going, why can't we do that here?
Oh man, like I live in a small like coastal town, like an hour outside of Adelaide, which is like a relatively big city. But like just like in 5 kilometers of where I live, there's like I reckon probably 3 or 4 like proper good basketball courts, like proper glass backboards, wooden sprung floors. Like it's just it's a different culture, like I guess when it comes to that type, and it's not just basketball, like it's all sports facilities, and I'm sure people from other sports in Ireland have the same gripes, apart from GAA, of course, and I guess soccer because it's just easier, accessible, and they get loads of funding and that kind of thing.
Well, that's the thing. Like,
But
we're an
yeah,
indoor sport. Like, just let us indoors. Like,
yeah,
it's not,
yeah.
like at the minute, like we can't train indoors, but the kids are in school, sitting in a classroom of 30 plus kids.
Oh man,
You
don't
know,
get me started on
you know,
shit like
and then
that.
it's like, yeah, let's go. Like, can we train? No. Okay. Retail opens tomorrow. Yeah, retail opens
Yeah,
tomorrow. So like every store is going to be open. So there's going to be 8,000 people in pennies picking up socks and jocks. Can we train?
they're not
No.
they're not thinking about the long term effects of
No.
that and just people's well being and that like that's going to hit like soon, but also down the track because people's mental well being will have suffered so much
Yeah.
because they've been isolated from their families. They're not allowed to go to actually do the thing that they love. In this case, basketball. I mean, just the short sightedness and how blunt they just close everything off. It's just there's no complexity there around thinking what restrictions make sense, what don't, what can we allow people to do.
No, there was nothing. It was just like, yeah, shut everything up.
Well,
Shut the doors.
yeah.
You're like,
oh
what?
look, man, they're the Irish politicians are a complete joke, but they're in the same in Australia. It's all over the world. Look at America, like they're awful. So, what can you do? You got to make the most. You got to do whatever you can.
That's it. Like,
you got
at
to
least
break into
we're back on
gyms.
the
You gotta-
outdoor. We're back on the outdoor courts now, which is great, and the kids are loving being back. And it's not drills around. We're just letting them go 5-on-5 and scrimmage and let them
Yeah,
fall in love with the game again.
that's
You know,
it.
and like at least the announcement the other day was the Irish junior teams can now train indoor, the national teams. So that's our senior men, senior women, and junior men and women. So look, let them get back. You know what I mean? Because like like how important it is to represent your country, and when you do, like that buzz and the feeling. Imagine that being just ripped away from you. Like this is your year. This is your year to compete, and it's like, nah, sorry.
Man, we can get into that if you want, because that happened. The Irish team was ripped away from myself and other people when we were in our prime. It was for a different reason, though. It was for
the fun with all the funding.
Yeah, the funding, and Basketball Ireland going into 1.2 million euro worth of debt. So I mean, that's a whole other story.
That's another podcast altogether.
Oh, stop, Jesus! We could talk about that forever. That whole situation, though, basically like inspired, I guess, my career now as being like a researcher and an academic in sports management, because I was at the time I was like, how the fuck like can a national governing body make that much of an absolute balls up of a situation where they get themselves in that much debt, and just the governance and management around that was just like the most interesting case study of how not to run a national governing body.
Oh, the FAI has to take precedence now.
Oh, that's it, man. Though, but it's across the board. The people that we have actually like at the head of some of these sports organizations in Ireland and Australia, everywhere. Again, it's like the politicians. Like, if somehow these people rise to the top, yet they're like the most unqualified bloody people to be there. It's just
absolutely
insane.
Absolutely.
So that's what like most of my work now, my professional life, just revolves around how to improve governance and sports management practice at national governing bodies. So in some way, that's the only silver lining that came from that absolute disaster at Basketball Ireland back in 2007 or 2008.
Was it that recent? 2008? Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's when, I reckon it was 2008 was when they so it started around then, but I think it was probably maybe 2010 when they like pulled the Irish teams, the senior teams. And we had a great group of Irish guys at that time, and some really good Irish Americans as well. Like
who would have been there? Yourself, Cummins, Isaac would have been there.
Colin O'Reilly, Jason Feline,
Conor Grace.
Yeah, we had like we were doing pretty well, and some of the Irish Americans were doing really well. Jay Larinaga was coaching at the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, to just have that ripped away, it was like pretty crushing, to be honest.
And it's time you can't get back. That's the worst thing.
No.
Especially like at your age. Whatever about being underage, you'll make another underage team. But when you get senior, your windows.
I'm glad I was able to be on the senior team for I reckon 3 or 4 years, and like that was some of the best basketball I've ever been a part of. Like, I mean, the guys on the team, both the Irish guys and the Irish Americans were just like insanely good. And then we were going up playing against like NBA players like Pablo Cephalosha, Luol Deng, like, you know, really good teams, really good players. So yeah, it was just like such an awesome experience. And I'm glad I've had that, you know, because then there was a generation behind me that they missed out completely for a good few years.
Yeah.
And then the team came back, but, you know, they didn't have like that quality of Irish Americans as well, you know, to complement the Irish guys there. So, and it's still not back anywhere close to that level that it was, you know. So the effects of that, you know, complete mismanagement of Basketball Ireland are still being felt a decade later. You know,
yeah.
It's just
very, very true.
I feel bad for that whole generation that came behind
that
me
missed
well,
out. You know?
Yeah. I feel terrible for them.
Brutal. Right, so over the years, Notre Dame, UCD, Hoops and Elks. Who was your favourite teammate and why?
Well, and I'd have to say Paul Cummins, because I can't say anyone else, or he disowned me as my best mate. I'm gonna be the best man at his wedding next March. So I think he'd relieve me of my duties if I didn't say him. But no, look, me and Paul met. We actually went to different primary schools, but we met at that community games team that we were on. I think we were probably 11 or 12 years old. And like I had heard kind of these rumors, oh, there's another like tall, skinny lad from, you know, a different school that plays basketball and like he shoots the ball okay. And I was like, who is this guy, you know? So I eventually saw him, and like it was a bit of like healthy competitive rivalry at first, but like then we just like became best mates, and like, you know, to this day we talk pretty much every day, to be honest.
Amazing.
So yeah, just, you know, we went to the same secondary school then together, PBS in Newbridge. And then he went off to the States to a high school, I reckon, after he did his junior cert. So he was like going into fifth year. But those 3 years, like in secondary school together, like we won, you know, the under 14 Ireland Championship, which was great. And I think we lost by a point in the under 16s. And we just had like a really good connection on the court, because like off the court, we'd hang out all the time, but we'd practice together all the time. Like we would just shoot and rebound for each other constantly, you know? So I just like would always know where he was on the court. Same with him. Like I remember a couple of games, like I would just like throw the ball kind of over my head behind my back, and it would just like go straight to him. Like I knew when he would cut to the basket or throw him alley-oops. Like he was so athletic. It was really fun to play with him, you know? And then he turned into like a great shooting guard as well. You know, he's a great 3-point shooter as well. So yeah, it was just always, it was fun playing with Paul growing up, and always had good crack off the court as well. That's for your over 18s podcast. I've been hearing you talking about some of those stories.
That's going to be a multiple person Zoom call where we get everybody on to tell the over 18 stories in one go.
Yeah.
And you and Paul obviously went on to collaborate then, like professionally.
Yeah.
Which is interesting as well.
Yeah, so we both ended up doing PhDs, which, you know, for two lads coming out of Newbridge is a bit random, I suppose. But Paul like went on to do a PhD, University of Ulster, and same as myself. And then a couple of years after that, we just kind of wrote a book on kind of sports leadership and the social identity theory of leadership and sports coaching. And, you know, it's very kind of academic based, not really like a best-selling novel or anything like that. But, you know, it was kind of like a good thing to do, and it was published by a really good academic publisher. And it gets lots of citations and stuff in the sports coaching world. So it was kind of fun just to reflect a bit on our own careers and that kind of thing. But yeah, if you ever, you know, need to get a bedtime story for the kids, that's the book you want to read, because it'll send them to sleep pretty quick.
Paul was a super player, career cut short with injuries, but what he's doing now with his academy is fantastic as well. Like he's one of those guys that's just always in and around the game, but always at the right time, and he pivots well depending on situations as well. So it's like he was an amazing shooter. But you know, I'm talking to one of the best pure shooters I've ever played with. You know what I mean? Like,
Jesus, I don't know about that.
Oh man, our season together, when Kevin Young told me to just set picks for you, I was in heaven. Every play, just go and get O'Boyle, just get him open. I was like, no problem. I'll nail whoever it is. You come off my shoulder. I was like, here we, that's a 3 ball every time. Like,
That first season at Hoops when Kevin came in, that was, I reckon, one of the most fun seasons I've ever had, man. Like we just, because we all came together out of like nowhere. Kind of, I had been at UCD. You hadn't played the year before.
I hadn't played for 8 years.
Yeah. Kevin came in out of nowhere from out of the States. You know, we were like, who the hell is this? Like 23-year-old, little white dude from Marietta, Georgia. We were like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And of course, he came in and just like changed the culture in a second. Like, he was like, right, we're gonna like win, and if like we're gonna try to win the cup, try to win the league. Anything else, pretty much a failure. And I was like, yeah, all right. Like,
but we all bought in. Like,
hear,
do you remember? So like we sat upstairs in the arena as a team after the fourth session, and we all
that vividly. Yeah,
introduced ourselves and where you came from and what you did. And I remember, like, as I said to Lenny, his light bulb moment when he realized he'd been living in Ireland longer than he'd lived in the States, and they were like Kevin and him were from like down the road from each other.
That's right. That's
like,
right.
It was just it was like so strange that we're all sitting there. We have this conversation. Kevin says his speech, and everyone bought in immediately.
Then and there.
It was.
I remember
it was
that.
an immediate. He was like, "So that's what we're going to do," and we all kind of looked at him and went, "Yeah, that's what we're going to do."
And we did it, man. I remember.
Bonded.
Yeah, I remember like we won like the first 10 games of the season. Yeah. We were like 10-0 or something, and everyone's like, "Oh, what the hell is going on with hoops and stuff?" And we just like you said, like we bonded as a team. I remember Joey Hastrup in that meeting. It was so funny. I know you had Joey on. I watched his episode. I love Joey, man. He's another guy, would be one of my favorite teammates of all time. Such a legend. But he was like, Kevin, I think, went around and was like, what do you want to get out of the season? And I was like, I want to fucking like win every game. I want to like win the league. I want to win the cup. I want to like destroy teams, not just win. And like Joey Hastrup was like real like animated. He's like, I want to like fucking run amok the whole season, I was like, yeah.
And then having to translate to Kevin what
that's
meant.
Right.
It's like, right, so look, this is what he means.
Yeah.
But
man, I don't know if a lot of people know, like, what Kevin has gone on to do now. Like
from
Kevin
GM
Young,
and coach at 23 of Shamrock Rovers Hoops in the Irish Super League to now be assistant coach with the Phoenix Suns.
Man, he was almost the head coach of the 76ers last year. He interviewed for the head coaching job, and if Doc Rivers basically didn't put his hat in the ring, I reckon Kevin would have been the head coach of the Sixers.
Yeah.
And, like I talk to Kevin still all the time. Like we've been over to the States, and like my kids and their kids are like they're American cousins, like
deadly.
Talk all the time. And like he's going to be an NBA head coach in the next couple of years.
Absolutely.
And I don't think like Irish basketball, well, like people who know what they're talking about in Irish basketball know him and know what he's gone on to do. But like Irish basketball is going to have a future NBA head coach like that's come through that system. And I don't think a lot of people realize that.
He was on Pat Price's podcast, Basketball Drunks, last year. And it was a brilliant episode, really good episode, because he was just like, he came in not knowing what the job entailed. And look, Bride Saunders doesn't get enough credit for what she's done. Like, Bride recruited so well that year. Luke O'Hay, I came back, Jay Reid came in, Kevin came in. Like, Lenny was back again. Like, Terrence Wilson was there. My brother came in, Connor Aynert. She recruited really well and gave Kevin the reins and just went,
but like that, club. Man, like, like she brought in some good players and stuff, but like it was Kevin that was the kind of the catalyst, I guess, that like just implanted that culture straight away. Because I've been on teams that, in Ireland and elsewhere that have had great players and great talent, but didn't do shit, Yeah. So if you don't have like, the right coaching and the right culture in place, it's just not going to happen.
We believed in each other.
Yeah,
we believed in each other. We all looked around that room that night and went, you know what? Yeah, I'm with a bunch of guys who, like, I knew you'd never let me down. You know what I mean? You weren't going to be, I'm not training tonight because of a hangnail or you know what I mean? It was like, no, I'm going to go till the end. I mean, like, we all just bought in. Like, it was just an incredible season. Yeah. And look,
it was what I was like kind of looking for as well out of Irish basketball. Like the season before that didn't go well at UCD, and like I broke my foot and stuff, and and was a bit shit. And then yeah, it's just like Kevin came in and Jay Reid and like yeah, I could just tell, and Luke, you know, kind of seasoned guys and knew what they were doing and knew how to compete. And I was like, yeah, like this is what I want to be a part of.
Yeah.
And I just wish Kevin stuck around for longer. That's the only
even
thing.
one more year with him, I think would have done us. Just one more year to just stay together. Because he was gone to, obviously, look, he went on to, you know, bigger and better things. But like, as from a selfish point of view, it's like, I would have loved just one more season with him coaching.
Yeah. So
because,
he
video breakdowns, scouting reports, like we were a professional team.
Yeah.
Without getting, like, we'd go to the house, we'd sit down, we'd rewatch game tape, you'd have breakdowns on who we were guarding, their tendencies, like everything. It was a professional setup. Yeah.
No, it was great. And he was actually going to be going to the Olympics as well, because he was going to be an assistant coach for the Australian team, because OBrien was going to be the head coach. This was back when the Olympics were supposed to be run last year. And then, you know, that fell apart for different reasons, and OBrien couldn't do it anymore, so Kevin wasn't going to be involved. But what needs to happen is when the senior men's team get back to, you know, kind of a high level, you know, they need to bring Kevin as a head coach, because he always said he'd be super keen to do that. Because he's really, like, he loved his time in Ireland, you know, so he needs to come in and be the head coach and bring some good Irish Americans, and, you know, get some of the better Irish players in there as well. And like that senior men's team would go on to do some really good things.
I think so. Absolutely. So over the years, who's been your toughest person to guard, and who played you the toughest on D?
Man, you know, like, I was ever, I guess, known as a defensive specialist. Probably wasn't the strongest part of my game. Probably should have worked harder on that, you know, throughout my career. But there's lots of guys, like, you know, the Irish Super League had lots of good players when I was there. And I just remember, like, one that really sticks out, because it was kind of like my first season when I was like 16 or 17, and used to playing against, you know, lads in Newbridge who had probably had a few cans before the game or something, you know. You'd be okay, like, guarding them. But then we were playing Limerick, and I think Luke in his episode was talking about this guy as well, Cleotis Brown. So it was like one of my first games playing Super League. It was, you know, and they put me on Cleotis Brown, and I was like, holy shit, like, this guy was so good. Like, he was great shooter, super strong, you know, could get to the rim and dunk on you, or could just, like, bring you to the outside and shoot threes in your face all day long. And I was like, oh man, like, this is, like, he's basically just below, like, an NBA level player, and I'm, like, stepping up from what I was used to guarding back in Newbridge. So that was, like, a serious baptism of fire for me. And you know, he obviously, like, pretty much could score at will on me, but I think the plan was that they would, like, send me on him and, like, try to deny the ball, kind of like a box and one type deal almost. And then as he easily enough would get around me, they'd, like, send the help and that kind of thing. So yeah, look, it was good. Like, it that kind of set the standard of, well, you know, this is the type of defense you'll be expected to play at this level. So it was a good kind of baptism of fire. And I reckon that was, like, the hardest kind of person I'd had to guard throughout that season, and even for future seasons in the Irish Super League. So yeah, definitely that guy. Do you remember that guy at all?
I was away from the game. I was on one of my many sabbaticals from basketball.
No, he was really good, man. He was just like even for, like, today's standards and stuff. I mean, obviously it wasn't that long ago, but, like, you know, I reckon if he was in like the Irish Super League, even now, like, he would be such a good player. He's just so athletic, and I think he was definitely playing below the level of where he could be at. I think he had played in higher leagues, like in Israel and stuff, I think people were saying. But yeah, he was a super player, really good.
And what about
in terms of
who did you hate coming up against?
Yeah, like, I don't know, man. Like, there's no one person I was like, oh shit, like, this is going to be, like, a really tough matchup for me. I'm not going to get any shots off or anything like that, because I had guys like you setting screens, just taking lads out, you know. So I always could rely on my post players to get me open, no matter who was guarding me, you know. So it wasn't the fact that I was some amazing offensive player. It was more so that, yourself and Ben and other post players that were on my teams were always great at setting screens for me. So it was more of a fact if like a team was really coached well and they knew how to defend like pick and rolls, or they knew how to like kind of switch out onto shooters. And like if an American was guarding you and he was, like a really tall athletic American, I'd always find that tricky because he could like get his hand up like over your screen, or if they switched out on me and put loads of pressure on me, I'd always find that a bit hard. Then like I obviously try to like, hit it to you because you'd have the mismatch then on a pick and roll. So I always found that, if a team was well coached and they knew how to defend on ball screens and picks, like then that would be problematic for me. But there was never one player that I was like, I kind of thought like this is going to be a tough matchup. There was certainly guys that I had to work harder to get open, but I don't think there was anyone that I felt. I'm sure they probably felt, they can guard me easy enough. But I was always pretty confident, so I always felt like I could get open.
That's a great answer.
Shot off no matter who was guarding me.
That's a great answer. That's really yeah. I'd just go out and do my thing. I couldn't give a shit who's standing.
Exactly. No, I never thought about that. I'd never think about, this guy's going to be guarding me. Like I'm going to have to work harder. I would play the same no matter what.
Yeah.
So yeah, no. Like I said, there was teams certainly that I felt like I'd have to like be working a bit harder, but not individual players.
Excellent. So basketball players, pre-game routines and superstitions. Have you or had you any?
Well, I don't anymore because I barely touch a ball anymore. But I don't know. Like I used to like wearing number 11 when I was younger, just like randomly, and then like that changed to number 6 because my birthday is the 6th of March, so that was that one. And then I think I got on teams and like both of those numbers were taken, so I was just like, whatever, just give me whatever number. So that kind of faded away pretty quick. But then, like when I was in the States, I used to like have like a pre-game routine that was like super intense. Like it was like, 300-400, maybe 500 shots like before a match, like in there, like hours before a game, getting shots up. And I used to do that. I used to be able to do that like for every home game because the gym would be free. But then like in some away games, like you don't get that opportunity really. And I remember one away game, I felt like I didn't get any shots up before the game. And then I had like a really bad game. And I was like, it's like because like I didn't get my routine going, like, before the game and all this stuff. And then I was like, man, like you can't rely on that. Like you can't be that superstitious that all of a sudden you're only a good shooter because if you can shoot before the game. Like obviously you get dialed in. But if you're a good shooter, like, the warm-up can be enough for you to do that. So I literally had to like force myself like not to have that superstition because it was like negatively impacting on my performance, So yeah, like I think superstitions can be like fine if they're like something small, but you don't want it to become like an excuse, so then if something goes wrong, you're like, that's why I played bad, or I'm not going to play good because I'm not wearing my favorite jocks or my favorite socks or whatever the hell it is, So, I'm not a big believer in that type of stuff really. And I think for good reason,
Yeah.
How about you? Did you have any, the only superstition I remember you having was just like smashing painkillers before every game. there
was a lot of painkillers. Yeah. Bad knees and all that. So my thing was I'd always be last out of the dressing room. And that right. Stemmed back to like the Irish team when we won in the arena in 92. I was the last one out of the dressing room every game. So that kind of just continued on. And I still do it now. I still try and be the last one out of the dressing room. And I never warm up with my jersey on.
Okay.
I always wear a t-shirt, warm up, and then put my jersey on just before the game. And always the number 13.
Yeah, I knew that. Now, what if someone like you didn't know was like, taking a shit in the changing room and they were the last one out? Would that ruin the game for you or what?
Yeah, but that's the thing, like small things like that never, like there's been times obviously I wasn't the last one out, you know what I mean? And it never got to me, but it's one of those things where I try to be the last one out. And it stems back to 1992, like it's 20 odd years, like let it go. It's time to just fucking bury it. But I can't. I can't. It's funny. Listening to JJ Redick as well, if you listen to his podcast, and like he layers every season, he has some new superstition. And he's pre-game routine is like 3.5 hours long or something. But now with
see,
COVID, he can't get into
yeah,
gyms because they're not allowed warm up beforehand, and that made him
yeah.
rethink everything.
See, that's not. I don't think that's healthy. Like a 3.5 hour like superstition routine. Like I think superstitions should be like put to bed. To be honest, I don't
Yeah,
think people should be encouraged to have
no,
them.
no,
And you
definitely.
know what? With shooters, especially like a guy like JJ Redick, like a lot of people like that, they've got crazy OCD. Like I have a bit of it myself, and I think that like it bodes really well for a shooter to have OCD because a lot of times when I was like practicing, it would be like make 10 shots in a row or 15 shots in a row or 20 shots in a row and don't leave the gym until you've done that, and that's that OCD. If you kind of harness the power of OCD in the proper way, it can make you actually a really good shooter.
Absolutely.
So I know from talking to a lot of other shooters that would have gone through same routines, like, and they have the exact same type of stories like that. Like literally their OCD is what made them a great shooter. And I think that's a big part of how I became somewhat of a decent shooter. So
Underselling
yeah.
yourself, you're a super shooter. So favorite kicks of all time, if you could phone a company and get them to make the OB1s or OB11s, which
Good idea.
which company are you ringing and what kicks are you wearing?
Oh man, when I was young, like I was all about like Jordans and Pippins. Like my first pair of basketball shoes, got them in Marathon Sports in the square. Remember Marathon Sports?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going back a few years. But
Yes.
they had these sick pair of Jordans just in there like randomly. It was, I don't know what number they were, but they were all black with a little bit of red on the sole. You probably know what number or whatever they were. I don't know all that.
What
much
age
about
were you?
them. I would have been like 12, 13, something like that. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm gonna say 6s or 7s. But go on anyway.
But anyway, I had those. My parents bought me those, and like instantly, I was a 50% better basketball player for wearing
Absolutely.
them. So
And you could jump higher.
Yeah. I could jump 2 inches now instead of 1 inch. So yeah, no, that they were cool, and then like obviously when I was like early teenage years, was all about like the latest shoes. So like the Shocks, I loved those. My parents brought me home a pair of those from the States one year, and I was super stoked on those. But then, man, when I became like kind of like earning money for myself, or a broke student, man, I couldn't buy like expensive basketball shoes. So I was like ordering these like bogey shoes off eBay that were probably like fake, like crap pieces of shit. Like, and all the lads like Cummins and Kev Foley, all these lads, like they were always giving me shit about like how shit my shoes were. And I was like, man, I can't afford like all these amazing shoes that you guys have. But then like with the Irish team, we got like these and1s. And I reckon I wore them the season at Hoops. Like, I was
Yeah,
like,
you did, yeah.
and one. They were like navy on the sole and all white, and they were kind of like high top. I was like, man, these are for free. Like, they're fine. Like, they're nice and light. They're grippy. I was like, I'll just rock these. I don't give a shit. Like, and1's like not cool or hip. I don't give a shit. So I just wore those, and yeah, they were cool. I was happy.
Yeah,
with
the
them.
and1s were cool, and they were underrated. It's funny, like I have a player returning to senior basketball this year, and she has spent, I'm going to say, the last 6 months looking for a pair of and1 Tai Chis anywhere on the internet, because they are her all-time favorite shoe. And she's making this comeback. She's like, I can't find them anywhere. I can get them in black and red, but I want them in blue and white. And it's like, well, I don't know.
Yeah, that's funny, man. No, but I've never been like a major, like since I've been an adult, I've never been like a major shoe guy, but I respect guys like yourself who are. Like, I think it's a cool thing to have. It's
hilarious. Look, I've 3 kids, and I'm a chef. I'm not setting the light on fire money wise. So I love my shoes from a distance.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you don't have like the collectibles, like the $500 Jordans.
A pair of Jordan 31s on at the minute. I played in 30s last year or 2 seasons ago. I've got a pair of 89 Air Cement flights that my brother actually got me in Elvery's, of all places. He rang me one day. He was like, I'm going to send you a picture. I was like, yeah, go ahead, yeah. I was like, yeah, get them for me. That was it. And I have a pair of Jordan 11s. But my last season, I want to go out wearing a pair of Jordan 9s. That's it. My last year, Jordan 9s, finish the season, put them up on the shelf and walk away.
Yeah. Well, my last pair of shoes, I think I got a new pair my last season in Australia. It was like 2017. And they were like Under Armour, like they were like some type of thing that Steph Curry was wearing, I guess. And those are still my current basketball shoes. So, and they're the only pair I have. So yeah, they're going fine.
Yeah, well, if you're not playing as much, they're gonna last a long time.
Nah, man, I put them on like going down to the beach on a wet day or something, and they're pretty sandy now and all that stuff. So yeah, they don't get much use on basketball court.
No respect. You wouldn't have done that when you were a kid. They would have been wrapped in bubble wrap.
Man, like yourself, like you've got 3 kids, I've got 4 kids. Can't be buying shoes for ourselves. Like kids need shoes, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and the rate their feet grow as well.
Oh, stop, man. Stop. They'll be wearing my Under Armour shoes next year.
That's another one. That's another podcast. You know, basketball parenting 101. Like that's a different. We'll launch that channel some other time.
Yeah, I'm coaching both my kids, like the 2 that are 8 years old. I'm coaching their team at the moment. So they're like on a mixed under 10s team.
Savage.
So it's them 2 and a few of their mates, and yeah, it's good crack, man. I'm like it. Like that's how I'm connected to basketball now, is like through the coaching side of it. And it's actually like really good fun, like to get in at that level, and like they're so stoked like on basketball. Like it reminds me of how I was back in the day, you know. And yeah, so it's fun to like see them kind of start their journey in the sport as well, you know.
See where it ends up. It's an interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So there you have it. There's part 1 of Eno Boyle's episode. Hope you've enjoyed it so far. Coming up next will be who he's taken to the court with him, musical influences, and what advice he'd give to a 16-year-old him. Also, his 5 for dinner, very, very interesting. I think it's going to shock a lot of people and create a lot of debate. Return to play. Hope everybody's enjoying it so far. We had our Instagram stories up the other day of, you know, any questions that you wanted to ask. Again, if you have any questions that you want to ask, shoot me a message over on Instagram or whatever, and we'll get them to our guests who will be announced next Friday. Until Thursday, which is part 2 of Ian's episode, this is Jago saying, I'll see you on the court.